Soylent Green from 1973, starring Charlton Heston, is a dystopian science fiction chiller that, in my opinion, more accurately predicted the direction the world's going in, much better than its stablemates from the 70s and previous works of literature and cinema that have dissected the possibility of dystopian future societies. A lot of people talk about 1984, but I think although 1984 was quite chilling in the prospect of a kind of a dystopian, tyrannical dictatorship, it didn't quite predict the way that the world would really run. Politics has kind of fallen by the wayside in terms of real power. I think we can all agree. Politicians don't really seem to run much of anything. Perhaps they run a few minor, inconsequential things and at best work as kind of a middle management kind of role. But they do seem to take their orders from elsewhere. And that elsewhere is covered in Soylent Green. Basically, society's run by a handful of big evil multinational corporations, private equity firms, and so on and so forth. And the big one in this movie is a company called Soylent. And in keeping with the theme, Soylent is responsible for about 99.9% of all food consumed on the planet. They make these little wafers that the masses, the great unwashed, the working poor survive on. There's Soylent Red, Soylent Yellow, and of course the titular Soylent Green. So I'll probably go into a few spoilers later on, so if you haven't seen the movie, probably best to not progress any further and watch some other video. But Soylent Green's set in the New York City of 2022, and New York City's hot and oppressive. There's been a big change of climate, and there's people coming out of the gills of the city. The city's heaving with people. A lot of overpopulation. There's people living in their cars. They can't get petrol anymore, so the cars have basically become dwellings, a kind of affordable housing for the working poor and the masses. And even a hired assassin in this movie has to live in a car, of course, as well. So even the bad guys that are doing hits aren't above this terrible austerity lifestyle of Soylent Green's 2022. So the plot of this one concerns a cop played by Charlton Heston, and he lives with he's one of the rare people that gets to live in an apartment, albeit with an elderly roommate called Sol. And Sol remembers the good times. He's a lot older than Charlton Heston, even though Charlton Heston looks quite aged in this movie. But I think he's got that 1970s thing happening where he was only 43 but looks 83. And he's a cop, lowly paid cop, and he's assigned to investigate the death of a executive for Soylent, the company that does supply 99.9% of the food on the planet. And as the film unfolds, we find out that what was initially suspected to be a self-deletion, as the kids say here on YouTube, was actually a case of someone being offed to keep their mouth shut, much like the case of a certain genius financier who operated an island, not to name any names. So similar sort of guy and similar sort of motivations. So it turns out that the food crisis is worse than anyone anticipated. The other Soylents, Soylent Red and Soylent Yellow, were made out of things like plankton, things like that, and presumably the bugs that they're always trying to feed us, while people like Bill Gates get to eat nice steaks and hoover up farmland by the hundreds of thousands of acres. So the plankton's all dying in the ocean. The climate's heating up. There's overpopulation. Things are looking grim. But there is a solution, of course. And that solution is, of course, that Soylent Green is people. So this movie, at least in my opinion, it hit a lot closer to home, closer to where life is heading than a lot of films, a lot of these dystopian sci-fi movies of the 70s and 80s. It didn't end up being a totalitarian government like 1984 or Red Dawn or anything like that. We were, I guess in one regard, bloodlessly overtaken by a handful of multinationals that have got their hands in seemingly every slice of the pie. And we all know who they are. I don't need to name any names. Although feel free to in the comments. All hail Google. So, Soylent Green was more clairvoyant, was more prescient than a lot of these dystopian sci-fi movies like Planet of the Apes, for example, or Logan's Run. They were fun in their own right and had something to say, but in terms of accuracy, Soylent Green sort of stands head and shoulders above the rest in terms of getting more right than it didn't get right. Things like real and artificial scarcity, and we see a lot of that in both regards being used to control the masses, to motivate the masses, whatever the case may be. In Soylent Green, there's allegedly these massive food shortages, but by the same token, the well-to-do don't seem to be having any trouble accessing what they need. So it does seem to be more of a wealth disparity situation than a environmental situation. Whether the environmental situation in the movie is real or played up kind of seems irrelevant, because there is this whole class living quite differently in their bubble to the average Joe, the average schlep. And some of the most interesting scenes in the movie are Charlton Heston seeing all of these things that he doesn't have, even though he ostensibly he should be in the inner circle due to his occupation as a police officer. But as we see, even he isn't privy to most of the benefits of the system that he's helping to propagate and prop up. It's quite a dark piece of dystopian science fiction. The well-to-do have these live-in sex slaves that they refer to as furniture, which is quite chilling, and also not that far off the mark for how the top 1% really do live, I guess, as we've learnt from the Epstein files and Diddy parties and things like that. So it does hold a mirror up to all those excesses of the whole Epstein class or the Hunger Games class in retrospect, and stuff that looked like exaggerated science fiction when I was a kid kind of seems to look more par for the course as I watch Soylent Green in 2026, 4 years after Soylent Green was set. So it's an interesting movie for a multitude of reasons. It's a very dark and nihilistic movie. Even the way it's shot seems very hopeless, apocalyptic, very murky, and it really has held up quite well over the years compared to a lot of science fiction from the 60s and 70s and even 80s. The endings are quite memorable, and you'll have trouble unseeing it if once you see it. And a lot of the elements of the ending, like the whole euthanasia elements and so on and so forth, really aren't that far off becoming normalised. There's some places in the world, like Canada, for example, I believe, where they're doing that sort of thing without a great deal of, let's just say, a great deal of justification. And as the world becomes more dystopian, as AI takes away our humanity and helps us to forget what it was like to be human, then it's basically safe to assume that many of the themes in Soylent Green are going to become more prevalent, and we're all headed for a bit of a hellscape where the best we can hope for is occasionally finding a prime rib hanging at a murder scene and a leaf of lettuce and an apple, and it'll be like winning the lottery. So that's about all I've got to say today about Soylent Green. But it does come highly recommended from me. It's a little tougher to see than a few of the movies out there on streaming services. You might have to track it down on physical media like I did back in the day, but that might be the best way to watch it, because it does give that whole tactile yin to Soylent Green's yang as a military helicopter flies over. I don't know if that's a bad omen or a good omen. So yeah, as I was saying, definitely worth checking out, preferably on physical media. One of Charlton Heston's best of his dystopian science fiction thrillers. He also made Planet of the Apes, of course, and The Omega Man. Both great films in their own right, but I don't think either of them have aged as well or seem as prescient as Soylent Green. Planet of the Apes is more theological, I guess, in theme, in tone, whereas Soylent Green's more about managed decline of society and these dystopian elements that creep ubiquitously into everything in the name of progress, in the name of doing the right thing. And it's not hard to picture people like Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg or Jeff Bezos watching Soylent Green and thinking to themselves, hey, that might not be a bad idea. But for the rest of us, it is, as I said, truly horrifying, truly chilling. And most chilling of all, it's sadly relatable in 2026. And you can kind of see where the trajectory's going and where some of these things that were outlandish plot elements in Soylent Green might become more widely spread, more ubiquitous, more common. And it isn't hard to imagine one day sitting there with a wafer of Soylent Red or Soylent Yellow or even Soylent Green on your plate, and remembering the days, the good old days when food wasn't synthetic and when things had taste, not just food, but society in general. So I hope you've enjoyed this look at Soylent Green, starring Charlton Heston. Easily one of the best dystopian science fiction thrillers of the 1970s. I hope I've brought something new to the table. I hope I haven't wasted your time. I know everyone's done a video on this one, but hopefully there's been a new take on it here. At least one or two different takes to the standard AI-generated Soylent Green YouTube reviews. So if you did enjoy the video, please like, share and subscribe. And I'm off to enjoy the rest of my evening. Hope you do as well. And I look forward to seeing you next time. Take it easy.